Welcome back, guys and girls, and returning viewers, new viewers, all of that good stuff. Thank you for being here. This is John with Pondering Moments. This week we're going to be talking about, or I'm going to be reading some quotes from Ronald Reagan. He was our 40th president. I believe he's only the second president ever who was not previously a politician. He was an actor prior to becoming president. Anyway, he was lauded as being one of the great presidents, and I like a lot of the quotes, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. Government exists to protect us from each other. Where government has gone beyond its limits is in deciding to protect us from ourselves. I've noticed that everyone who is for abortion has already been born. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Or one day, we will spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like in the United States, where men were free. The greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. If we ever forget that we're one nation under God, then we will be one nation gone under. There is no limit to the amount of good you can do if you don't care who gets the credit. The most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government, and I'm here to help you." I have left orders to be awakened at any time during national emergency, even if I'm in a cabinet meeting. Christmas can be celebrated in the schoolroom with pine trees, tinsel, and reindeer, but there must be no mention of the man whose birthday is being celebrated. One wonders how a teacher would answer if a student asked why it was called Christmas. How do you tell a communist? Well, it's someone who reads Marx and Lenin. And how do you tell an anti-communist? It's someone who understands Marx and Lenin. Live simply, love generously, care deeply, speak kindly, leave the rest to God. Republicans believe every day is the 4th of July. But the Democrats believe every day is April 15th. Sometimes, when I'm faced with an atheist, I am tempted to invite him to the greatest gourmet dinner that one could ever serve, and when we have finished eating that magnificent dinner, to ask him if he believes there's a cook. We don't have $1 trillion debt because we haven't taxed enough. We have $1 trillion debt because we spend too much. We must reject the idea that every time a law is broken, society is guilty, rather than the lawbreaker. It is time to restore the American precept that each individual is accountable for his actions. A nation that cannot control its borders is not a nation. I know in my heart that man is good, that what is right will always eventually triumph, and there is purpose and worth in each and every life. Government's view of the economy could be summed up in a few short phrases. If it moves, tax it. If it keeps moving, regulate it. And if it stops moving, subsidize it. I hope we once again have reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited. There's a clear cause and effect here that is as neat and predictable as a law of physics. As government expands, liberty contracts. It isn't so much that liberals are ignorant, it's just that they know so many things that aren't so. Politics is not a bad profession. If you succeed, there are many rewards. If you disgrace yourself, you can always write a book. Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged. Recession is when your neighbor loses his job. Depression is when you lose yours. And recovery is when Jimmy Carter loses his. We will always remember. We will always be proud. We will always be prepared. So we will always be free. It has been said that politics is the second oldest profession. I have learned that it bears a striking resemblance to the first. The future doesn't belong to the light-hearted. It belongs to the brave. Socialites ignore the side of man that is the spirit. They can provide you shelter, fill your belly with bacon and beans, treat you when you're ill, all the things guaranteed to a prisoner or a slave. They don't understand that we also dream. Our natural, inalienable rights are now considered to be a dispensation from government, and freedom has never been so fragile, so close to slipping from our grasp as it is at this moment. The federal government did not create the states. The states created the federal government. If you analyze it, I believe the very heart and soul of conservatism is libertarianism. I think conservatism is really a misnomer, just as liberalism is a misnomer for the liberals. If we were back in the days of the revolution, the so-called conservatives today would be the liberals, and the liberals would be the Tories. The basis of conservatism is a desire for less government interference or less centralized authority or more individual freedom, and this is a pretty general description also of what libertarianism is. To sit back hoping that someday, some way, someone will make things right is to go on feeding the crocodile, hoping he will eat you last, but eat you he will. Government's first duty is to protect the people, not run their lives. Above all, we must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable as the will and moral courage of free men and women. Socialism only works in two places: heaven, where they don't need it, and hell, where they already have it. Government does not solve problems, it subsidizes them. We can't help everyone, but everyone can help someone. No government ever voluntarily reduces itself in size. Government programs, once launched, never disappear. Actually, a government bureau is the nearest thing to eternal life we'll ever see on this earth. A hippie is someone who looks like Tarzan, walks like Jane, and smells like Cheetah. Government is like a baby, an elementary canal with a big appetite at one end and no sense of responsibility at the other. I've always believed that a lot of the trouble in the world would disappear if we were talking to each other instead of about each other. In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. From time to time, we've become tempted to believe that society has become too complex to be managed by self-rule, that government by an elite group is superior to government for, by, and of the people. Well, if no one among us is capable of governing himself, then who among us has a capacity to govern someone else? All of us together, in and out of government, must bear the burden. The solutions we seek must be equitable, with no one group singled out to pay a higher price. You and I are told we must choose between left or right, but I suggest there is no such thing as left or right. There is only up or down. Up to man's age-old dream, the maximum of individual freedom consistent with order. Or down to the ant-heap of totalitarianism, regardless of their sincerity, their humanitarian motives. Those who would sacrifice freedom for security have embarked on this downward path. Remember that every government service, every offer of government-financed security is paid for in the loss of personal freedom. In the days to come, whenever a voice is raised telling you to let the government do it, analyze very carefully to see whether the suggested service is worth the personal freedom which you must forego in return for such service. If more government is the answer, then it was a really stupid question. Never let the things you can't do stop you from doing what you can. Here you discover that so long as books are kept open, then minds can never be closed. Freedom prospers when religion is vibrant and the rule of law under God is acknowledged. When our founding fathers passed the First Amendment, they sought to protect churches from government interference. They never intended to construct a wall of hostility between government and the concept of religious belief itself. To those who cite the First Amendment as reason for excluding God from more and more of our institutions every day, I say, the First Amendment of our Constitution was not written to protect the people of this country from religious values. It was written to protect religious values from government tyranny. Entrepreneurs and their small enterprises are responsible for almost all the economic growth in the United States. Concentrated power has always been the enemy of liberty. If history teaches anything, it teaches that self-delusion in the face of unpleasant facts is folly. Perhaps you and I have lived with this miracle too long to be properly appreciative. Freedom is a fragile thing and is never more than one generation away from extinction. It is not ours by inheritance. It must be fought for and defended constantly by each generation, for it comes only once to a people. Those who have known freedom and then lost it have never known it again. We should measure welfare success by how many people leave welfare, not by how many people are added. For the average American, the message is clear. Liberalism is no longer the answer. It is the problem. No matter what your background, no matter how low your station in life, there must be no limit on your ability to reach for the stars, to go as far as your God-given talents will take you. Trust the people. Believe every human being is capable of greatness, capable of self-government. Only when people are free to worship, create, and build, only when given a personal stake in deciding their destiny and benefiting from their own risks, only then do societies become dynamic, prosperous, progressive, and free. The gun has been called the great equalizer, meaning that a small person with a gun is equal to a large person. But it is a great equalizer in another way too. It ensures that the people are equal of their government whenever that government forgets that it is the servant and not the master of the governed. When the British forgot that, they got a revolution, and as a result, we Americans got a constitution. A constitution that, as those who wrote it were determined, would keep men free. If we give up part of that constitution, we give up part of our freedom and increase the chance that we will lose it all. I am not ready to take that risk. I believe that the risk of the citizen to keep and bear arms must not be infringed if liberty in America is to survive. There can be no freedom without order, and there is no order without virtue. Now that's a simple enough formulation, but it's an insight found only in the writings of the founding fathers like Washington or great political thinkers like Edmund Burke. It is also found in the great part of the Judeo-Christian tradition. Inflation is as violent as a mugger, as frightening as an armed robber, and as deadly as a hitman. If freedom, democracy, and the rights of man are to be preserved through the ages, free men and women must accept the responsibilities that go with their freedoms. I had a copy of the Soviet Constitution, and I read it with great interest. And I saw all kinds of terms in there that sound just exactly like our own. Freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, and so forth. Of course, they don't allow them to have those things, but they're in their constitution. But I began to wonder about other constitutions. Everyone has one, and our own, and why so much emphasis on ours? And then I found out, and the answer was very simple. That's why you don't notice it at first, but it is so great that it tells the entire difference. All those other constitutions are documents that say, we, the government, allow the people the following rights. And our Constitution says, we, the people, allow the government the following privileges and rights. We give our permission to the government to do the things it does, and that's the whole story of the difference. Why we're unique in the world, and why, no matter what our troubles may be, we're going to overcome. I'd learned a few lessons about negotiating. You're unlikely to ever get all you want. You'll probably get more of what you want if you don't issue ultimatums and leave your adversary room to maneuver. You shouldn't back your adversary into a corner, embarrass him, or humiliate him. And sometimes, the easiest way to get some things done is for the top people to do them alone and in private. Of all the millions of refugees we've seen in the modern world, their flight is always away from, not toward, the communist world. I don't believe in a fate that will fall on us no matter what we do. I do believe in a fate that will fall on us if we do nothing. Liberty has never come from government. Woodrow Wilson, one of FDR's predecessors and another Democrat, said, "The history of liberty is the history of limitation of government's power, not the increase of it." Somewhere along the line, the liberal Democrats forgot this and changed their party. It was no longer the party of Thomas Jefferson or Woodrow Wilson. The competitive, free enterprise system has given us the greatest standard of living in the world, produced generation after generation of technical wizards who consistently lead the world in invention and innovation, and has provided unlimited opportunities, enabling industrious Americans from the most humble of backgrounds to climb to the top of the ladder of success. By 1960, I realized the real enemy wasn't big business, it was big government.